No, good morning still. Ajay, I wasn't scribbling notes. I was taking out points that I think already has been spoken about. And actually, I could say that I have practically nothing to speak about because everything, the erudition is already done. So I thought, why not I kind of put you in the context? Because I'm a believer of technology, of course, because that's what we live with, and we have been living with since time immemorial. I mean, the fact that humans became humans is because somebody invented wheels, somebody invented fire. So technology is not new to humans. But I think the pace at which technology is coming to us with the fourth industrial revolution as we speak is unprecedented. I'm sure the Industrial Revolution 5, if anybody in this room was going to stand and see that happen, will be even faster. Hopefully that will escape me. I'll possibly not be around, thankfully, to see the fifth industrial revolution. But what is it that's happening? And I think we have to put the human back in the center. First of all, we are living longer. Not necessarily better. We are living longer. That means we will grapple more and more with age-related diseases. We will grapple more and more with longer empty nests when the children are out. We will grapple more and more with very, very complex, first of its kind ailments, social problems, loneliness, all of that kind. And I hope truly that blockchain will become your smile, because humans will need a lot of smile. The second thing that's happening is urbanization. Good, the jury isn't out. Because what has happened is, because of this rapid urbanization, the world has created huge amount of urban poverty. And urban poverty, if you do studies around urban poverty, you will find is actually deeper. And because it's urban poverty, it goes subterranean, and there are very few solutions, work that happens around urban poverty. For example, the children of the construction workers, where do they disappear? One project to another. And this is not just in India, this is global. So urbanization is a reality. Already the world has tipped over, 50% more of the world lives in cities. Expectation is by over the next 10 years, close to 65% of the world will live in cities. Will those cities be better? Or should we try to make it better? I bet. The third trend is this, it started by saying connected, leading to Internet of Things, now Internet of Everything. So human is finally becoming a part of that thing. Now that's a very dehumanization process, if you think about it. So for example, to keep my health, I take this smart pill in the morning, which tells my doctor all the details of what's happening in my body and my vitals and it sends out signals, and I therefore have waived off my privacy rights. We've heard about privacy rights. I've waived off my privacy rights, and my data is supposedly going to give me a better life, better health, and etc. But what it is also doing is, it's making me, as Yuval Harari argues, as hackable device. So for the first time, a human being, every emotion of a human being, which is as a result of a chemical reaction, can be coded and can be hacked. And that's the reality. People have actually shown proof of how a human can be hacked. So the reason I wanted to place this up in the front over here is, I think the questions, therefore, that's facing us is as much as of opportunity, as much as of risk. And we have heard a fair amount of those alerts been bugled. So let me take you, the part of my storytelling, let me take you to a few important dates which I could conjure up when I was thinking about what to speak in the context of the erudition that was spoken before me by my three eminent speakers. So I think the first date that came to my mind is 1997, the year, not a date really, the year, when, which has kind of been considered as the start of the modern era of artificial intelligence. And do anybody remember what happened in 1997? It already seems so far away. Well, 20 years back, or 21 years back, a computer defeated a grandmaster. Garry Kasparov lost to the Deep Blue. And he didn't lose to the Deep Blue because the Deep Blue outplayed him. If you read that book, the famous book which Kasparov wrote, which came out 3 years back, he says the Deep Blue frustrated him. The Deep Blue played on his emotion. And Garry Kasparov threw that match. He got frustrated. He threw that match. And the impact was so deep on him, the next 2 matches that he played, he'd do a draw, and the third match he again made a vital mistake, and it was a slam dunk for Deep Blue. But who was Deep Blue? If you really think about it, Deep Blue was Garry Kasparov himself. He was teaching Deep Blue for 15 years, not the Deep Blue, the version that we played, but for 15 years, Kasparov, as a fellow of IBM Research Lab, was teaching a computer to defeat a grandmaster. So in his book, if you really read about it, it's as much as about artificial intelligence, as much it is about the human emotions that played with Kasparov when he lost. On one hand, he was a winner, because it was his student, the computer, which finally defeated the possibly still today the most, I would say, you can actually use a superlative of superlatives. You can say the most and the best of the chess player that ever the world has come up with. Who possibly has outplayed every grandmaster of every generation, and his knowledge going into this computer. So that's 1997. 2014, anybody remembers what happened in 2014? A boy was born. Now, what's so great about a boy being born? A boy was born at the age of 13. That's enigma. How can he be born at the age of 13? Well, there was a boy called Eugene who was born at the age of 13, not because he was really a boy. He was actually a computer. But the Turing's test failed. Anybody who knows what the Turing test is when the experts cannot distinguish between the transponder on the other side, whether that person is a human or a machine. So you do kind of a blind test, pretty much like you're doing a blind test of colas. You do a blind test, you're interacting with 5 different people over computers through chats, and these are, chats could be around poetry. And in fact, when Eugene, this boy who was certified to be a human, was supposed to be a 13-year-old boy of Russian origin, learning English, so obviously he was making a little bit of mistakes of here and there in the way he was speaking, as much as the examiners were making those mistakes, normal typos, etc. And this guy was talking about poetries, he was talking about art, he was talking about Eminem, the music of Eminem. Eminem was big at that point of time. So Eugene was born at the age of 13, and he was certified to be a human, which later was found out that it was the first time the Turing's test failed. Thereafter, every year, the Turing test has failed. And the first Turing test failure was scheduled at 4 hours. Last year, the Turing test was at 40 hours. That means 40 hours of interaction, and the humans couldn't figure out they were talking to a human or a machine. This has deep impacts on the chatbots, on the services that you think you're... So it's not no more a service in America being given by an Indian who has learned how to, or a Filipino who has learned to speak an American accent from a few thousand miles away. It could be pretty much a chatbot. 2016. What happened? Donald Trump. But what's about Donald Trump? It's about the first time the United States woke up to a fact that its election could have been hacked. Its election could have been hacked by agents from Russia through fake news. The jury isn't out, but Mueller is finding something. So we heard about human greed, human avarice, which leads to accumulation of power, and we saw that in 2016, or a possibility of that happening in 2016. Anybody surprising today that the same thing is not happening across the world? Well, I'm sure, heart of heart, everybody knows that it's happening. What's the extent it's happening? We are not sure. And the last date, which I thought I'll put it into perspective, is last year. Actually, I remember the date. It's 15th of May 2017 when the mighty fell. You know what happened? My mother started using a smartphone, grudgingly. Why grudgingly? Because she wanted to keep in touch with her grandchild, my daughter, far away. And she said, oh, finally she agreed to do when I had to literally bribe her because she lives alone in Calcutta. I said, you have to use something because I wanted to get connected with her. So I bribed her with this smartphone and said, you at least must stay connected with your grandchild. Today, my mother can't live without it. She has found all ways, even to speak to the computer because she can't type well, speak to the computer and find the YouTube videos that she wants to watch. And she amazes me every day. And she's doing all those fake forwards also. She is adding to the worlds of fake news. But well, that's the reality. That's the average included digital people, not excluded digital people. So I think there is digital included, digitally excluded, and a large swath of gray zone, pretty much like the middle class, which is the digital included or digital excluded, or it could be both, or either or nor. And that's the consumer. So when David Ogilvy turned around and said, don't fool the consumer, she is your wife, which is the wife that we're talking about? And how much of that wife can be hacked? I think that's the business question. Opportunities are emerging. So all these trends are taking interest in opportunities. We have heard about the gig economy. It's not just the youngsters who don't want to work for a big company anymore. I mean, I used to be part of big companies, and there were times when seeing me in a campus, in a university campus across the world, of course, used to be a privilege because that means my company is visiting a campus to hire people, and we were we were talking about day zero. And I remember when I was doing my undergraduate and postgraduate, we were considerations of day zero as in days ones. Today, I think many of these companies will have to bribe their way through to even make it into the list. And these are real-world companies. Real-world companies of billions and trillions of dollars worth of assets, which doesn't even make it into campus because people want to work for companies where IP is more valued than assets. So here is a company, here is a world where the economy of the world has been framed around assets and asset valuations. That's on which currencies have been denominated. And suddenly you have companies which are the top 10 valued New World companies, none of them are companies with assets. Incidentally, when we talk about digital divide, here is the digital divide. Of the top 10 companies, 7 are from the United States, 3 are from China. Europe doesn't even figure. Rest of Asia doesn't even figure. So when we talk about the world is becoming flat, as Friedman spoke about, is it really becoming flat, or is it's becoming fat? Because I think the power to build a monopoly today for a company, a smart company using platform, look at what WeChat has done. 4-year-old company, $10 trillion worth of transactions went through WeChat. $10 trillion. That's 5 times the size of Indian GDP. So, and it's all in 4 years. So if you start thinking about the business opportunity, of course, I think it's a winner-takes-it-all opportunity. And the laws are pretty much inadequate to fight, the monopoly laws are pretty much inadequate to fight over here because you have this big daddy of intellectual property rights that will come in. So I think the IPRs will get rewritten. I think the way you look at monopolistic practices and trade practices will get rewritten. The age of the platforms are coming in. Initially, it was the aggregators, the marketplaces. The marketplaces guys got smarter. Is Amazon today just a marketplace, or is Amazon internet services company, or is Amazon the backbone of digital economy? No one can say. And no one can say what's going to come out tomorrow. Who is Amazon disrupting? Is Amazon just disrupting Walmart stores? Or is Amazon disrupting DHL? Because Amazon's Prime Services today is the world's largest transportation courier services. Aggregation platforms moved to social platforms. We saw the rise of the Facebooks. In fact, today's generation doesn't even use Facebook. It's already too old. Facebook is for the oldies, as my daughter says. She's on the Instagram. you have celebrities which, to listen to their messages, for a minute in the morning, you're actually subscribing into services, like WeChat, for example, has services where celebrities go on and giving you a hello, good morning message in the morning, and people are actually paying for it. Cents, but millions of people paying a cent is still a lot of dollars. Social, and if you think about the Maslow's hierarchy, so we are going up the hierarchy. The basic, the food, clothing, shelter getting covered, we are moving into the friends and familial hierarchy. Then we go getting into the social and the prestige hierarchy. So you have the mobilization networks that are coming in, the knowledge networks that are coming in. For example, mobilization network is all about, for example, there are enough people in the world who still have a lot of spunk left in their golden age, and there are parts of the world where they need that knowledge. You're bringing them together and you're creating knowledge networks, which is a very interesting concept because for the first time, you're moving from the information age, where you structured data and you created information, to knowledge age, where you're bringing in context. And I think the biggest opportunity for companies in the next 5 to 10 years would be companies which can bring in context. And context, so if you see today the whole new set of investments, and I get to hear these pitches from these great software engineers and computer programmers and et cetera all the time, of people who are trying to write these AI algorithms to solve this context problem. They're not solving, the logistics is now given. They're going to ride on top of logistics, but they're going to solve context. And context can be a micro context to a very macro context. And that brings us to what, in my hypothesis was, and this is going to be my concluding remarks, is what I advised my daughter when she walked up to me and she said, Dad, what's your advice for me? I'm going to graduate in a couple of years, and she's going to graduate next year. She said, Dad, what's your advice for me? As a well-meaning father, I wanted to give her an advice. So I said, let me think about it, and let's talk about it in a week. And I postponed it by another week, not because I was busy, I acted busy, but I had no answer. I couldn't figure out. Because this is not my daughter. It's not an advice that I'm giving it to an employee walking up to me on the corridor and asking me questions, or a friend's kid asking me questions, or somebody on the internet asking me a mentoring question, this is my daughter, my legacy, the human's urge to keep legacy. And I had nothing to say because I felt I knew nothing about what I could give her as an advice. The only advice that I gave her was to be what I call a perfect generalist. Who's a perfect generalist? Or super generalist. I think the super generalist is a person, the only skill that will take us through this is who can learn fast, but they can unlearn faster. It's expected every 5 years, the knowledge that we have, 50% of that, Oxford studies, Harvard studies, all of the studies that says, in 5 years is the half-life of human knowledge today, expected to become about 2 to 3 years. To what is 2 to 3 years? It's nothing. It's not even 4 years of undergraduate degree. That means by the time you've entered the undergraduate course, and by the time you've graduated, the knowledge, there's a 50% chance plus that all that you have studied or you wanted to study is actually obsolete. So in that age, I think, ladies and gentlemen, we have to welcome ourselves to the world of constant learning and unlearning, and that's going to be the new economy, and that's where the opportunities and the threats and the risks lie. Thank you.